Hello, everyone, and welcome to Body Bags. I'm your reviewer for today. I am Lonnie, and my channel is Horror Heaven77. And tonight, hmm, yeah, come to think about it, it's like here it is. We're into September, and as horror fans like to put it, September is basically Halloween Eve because it's all about now. It's all about getting ready for our favorite time of the year, which is Halloween. This is when we start decorating. This is when we start going out and hitting up the spirit Halloween stores, everything. So, and one of the things that I think some of us tend to do is we like to start busting out some of the old school horror films. That's not to say we don't enjoy the new stuff as well, but I'm just saying that, I think that, around September, Halloween, stuff like that, you kind of start getting nostalgic for some of that older stuff. And that's what prompted me to want to review this movie tonight. And we're going to talk about the Vincent Price movie, The Last Man on Earth. I honestly don't know if this movie's ever been reviewed for this channel, but I thought I'd go ahead and take a shot on it anyway. So, obviously, okay, The Last Man on Earth, based off of Richard Matheson's book, I Am Legend, which, just my personal opinion, okay, I gotta be honest, the book I Am Legend has been adapted into movies several times. Okay, there's this movie, Last Man on Earth. There was The Omega Man with Charlton Heston. There was I Am Legend with Will Smith. There was I Am Omega with Mark Dacascos. So the book has been adapted numerous times, and George Romero, when he was alive, even admitted that the book I Am Legend was very much an inspiration for Night of the Living Dead. So, um, yeah, it's a classic story. It's a great horror story. Stephen King said it was one of the most influential books he ever read, and one of the books that really inspired him to want to become a writer. So, yeah, I mean this story's got a lot of history behind it. Now, the film, it's an Italian production. I know a lot of people are probably going to be like, "Yeah, dude, when I watched the movie and." Aside from Vincent Price, everybody else in the movie is obviously dubbed. I can tell it's an Italian movie, but it's an Italian film, and it's kind of a science fiction slash horror film, and the story's pretty simple. And we have the character of Robert Morgan, who's in the book he's Robert Neville, but in the movie he's Robert Morgan. He's played by Vincent Price, and he's a scientist. And basically, his whole day to day routine is it's the end of the world. And as far as he knows, he's the only person still left alive. Now he has a radio, a CB radio. He's always like trying to contact, see if anybody out there that he can get in touch with. But it's been 3 years and he still has no luck. So at the beginning of the movie, we see him go through his day to day, operation and stuff. And what we come to realize is basically is that the world is pretty much wiped out by a vampire plague. And so he gets up, like we find out him doing his routine as the credits unfold. He's, getting up, he's, deciding what he's going to have for breakfast. He's like, nah, today I'll just have juice and coffee. He's making wooden stakes so he can go and kill the vampires. He's looking around his house. Is like, okay, I had garlic around the door. The garlic's lost its pungency. I need to put more garlic up. The vampires broke the mirrors because, in this version, usually vampires can't see themselves in a mirror. But in this version, the idea is they can't stand to see themselves in a mirror. They're horrified by their own image. So he's like, I got to take care of the mirrors. I got to replace those too. So he's, we see him go through his day to day, and we find out that there are bodies out in front of his house, and that the vampires are kind of like almost like wild animals in a way. That when they have no food to thrive on, what will happen is that the stronger the vampires will feed off of the weaker ones and kill them. So he ends up he's got a big station wagon that he takes all these dead bodies, he puts them in his car and he drives them out, throws them into this fire pit, burns them up. And this is pretty much his life. And, he's kind of going through his day to day, and it's interesting, here's, you could tell it's definitely taking a toll on him physically and mentally. He's thinking about his wife who he lost. He's thinking about his daughter who he lost. And it's really, it's really hurting him. It's really, really bothering him. And then we get into what a lot of people would call kind of the irritating part of the film, which is basically it's pretty much a 3-act structure. And the first act is, like I said, just kind of showing him do his day to day operations. And then, the really spooky part for me is when the vampires come out. And when they come out, it very much looks like Night of the Living Dead. You could definitely tell Ramiro admitted he was inspired by, I Am Legend and stuff like this for Night of the Living Dead. And you can see it. You can definitely see the inspiration in here because the vampires slowly come up to the house and they're like beating on the doors and beating on the windows. And, one vampire is actually his best friend in life. It's keep saying, Morgan, come out, Morgan. We're going to kill you, Morgan. And real quick, just a real funny story. I remember my dad used to tell me the story that when he was a kid, my grandparents, they took him and my uncle and I believe my aunt. I don't know if it was a drive-in or just a movie theater, but they went to go see this movie in the theater or the drive-in. And so apparently it freaked out my uncle so bad that supposedly like they went home and later that night they were, you know, um, my brother or my dad and my uncle, they were sleeping in the same room together. And then supposedly later on the night, my grandfather was going around, like banging on the doors, going, Morgan, come out, and scared the hell out of my uncle, just, made him, climb up the walls. And this is one of those movies that, honestly, I remember my parents talking this movie up so much when I was a kid. They talked about how scary it was, how well made it was. Vincent Price, at the top of his game, like he always is. And I was one of those kids. You tell me something like that, if it piques my interest and you tell me how good it is, it just makes me want to watch it even more. And finally, I think I saw this when I was like maybe 12 or 13, somewhere in that area. And I did. I love the movie. I think it's great. But anyway, getting back to it, like I said, the first act is, showing Morgan just kind of do his day to day operation. Then we get into the second act, which is, basically kind of doing like a backstory, kind of almost like a prequel in a way, where you're seeing like, Morgan with his wife and his child and how, they're a very loving family and that, we see his friend Ben Cortman as a live, living human being and not just as a vampire trying to get into the house and trying to attack him and stuff, and just kind of showing how it all goes down. So the second act is it's a little bit of an obstacle to get through. It's like because you're having to learn how the whole thing started and how it culminated into the situation that it's at now. But hopefully I'm not. Well, obviously it's not giving away anything because the movie's called Last Man on Earth, and Vincent Price is the last man on Earth. Uh, so when his wife dies and she succumbs to the vampire plague, at first he doesn't stake her. He just decides he wants to bury her because if they find, they got like these army people going around and they're going into homes. If they find dead people, they take them and they throw them in the pit. He does not want to throw her into the pit. He doesn't want to do that to her. So he takes her out to the cemetery and he gives her a proper burial. They had already taken his daughter, which that devastated him. But like I said, he decided he's going to go ahead and take his daughter out or his wife out and bury her. And then later on that night, it's like there's this really wonderful, super scary scene where, he's in the house and he keeps hearing his and you can see the doorknob turning and the door slowly opens. His wife comes in. She's it's like it's fantastic. That scene is amazing. It's so wonderful. And then we get into the third act where we realize that actually Morgan may not be the final man on Earth. That there might be others, but the downside is they're not, they're not on Morgan's side. So they see him. Yeah, they see the vampires as enemies, but they see Morgan as just as much of an enemy as the vampires ever were. So anyway, I'm not going to give away the rest. Chances are probably most of you've seen this already, but overall, I love this movie. I think this movie is fantastic. It's wonderful. It's so scary, so creepy. Like I said, it's a little bit of a slog to get through the second act, but if you can do that, this movie it continually pays off. It's just great. Vincent Price, it's like I'm sure there are probably some people. I guess it might depend on your version of Vincent Price. Do you like Vincent Price when he? Me, I like Vincent Price. Period. I like when he plays a good guy. I like when he plays a bad guy. I don't care. I just like Vincent Price. But I'm pretty sure there are probably people out there when it comes to Vincent Price, they just want to see him play the bad guy. They want to see him in stuff like Witchfinder General or something like that. Um, I like it when he plays a little bit of everything. I like when he plays good guys. I like when he plays bad guys, stuff like that. And I think this movie is just, oh, it's so good. The black and white is fantastic. The funny thing is, though, is like I have it. I can't reach it right now, but I have it on DVD in a colorized version. Now, this was before I got the Blu-ray here, and the reason why I keep that is like honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of colorizing black and white movies, but that is one of the few movies I've actually seen where it looks really good colorized. One of the few black and white movies I've ever seen where it seems like they did it right. That's one that's like it's not so horrible on the eyes. Like you go and see like the colorized version of Night of the Living Dead, it really does. It hurts your eyes. But that one there, it seemed like they kind of did it with more kind of somber colors and more kind of stripped down colors and everything else, and it works. It works for that. So even if you come across that DVD, the colorized, I say pick it up because it's actually one of those few black and white movies that look good colorized. But anyway, though, overall, just yeah, I can't recommend The Last Man on Earth enough. If you're a horror fan, you're gonna love it. If you're a Vincent Price fan, you're gonna love it. If you're a gore fan, you're not gonna love it because let's face it, this is a movie from the 1960s, so yeah, no gore in there. But if you don't mind a good, genuinely scary, well-made horror film, then yeah, Last Man on Earth is going to be right up your alley, and it's such a perfect movie to play around Halloween time, and of course, look at here, pretty much any Vincent Price movie is perfect to play around Halloween time. So anyway, so yeah, I'm happy about that. So anyway, that's going to go ahead and wrap that up. And if anybody took the time to watch this video, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like on the video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Body Bags channel. We have a reviewer from one day of the week. The Saturday reviewer. We got great guys doing great stuff. They all do, good reviews, solid. Please, be kind enough to check out my channel, Horror Heaven77. And yeah, until next week, I'm your host, Lonnie from Horror Heaven 77, and enjoy the rest of the week. I'll see you later.